President Trump was swept into office in part because of his supposed blue-collar appeal. For example, he promised that America's truckers would prosper under his administration. So how are they doing? After 3 years under Trump, this is the check-in. Trucking is a huge American industry worth over $700 billion and employing over 7 million Americans, which is why Trump pandered so hard during an event with trucking industry executives at the White House a few years ago when he donned an I Love Trucks button and then played inside of one. Nothing says I'm a real blue-collar guy like, how do you get me down from a truck? This looks like a geriatric remake of Smokey and the Bandit. Wait for me, Bandit. Snowman's gotta pee again, 10-4. When Trump later addressed trucking CEOs and executives at the White House, even he had to admit that he was full of it.
Through day and night and all kinds of weather, truckers course the arteries of our nation's highways. You carry anything and everything, the food that stocks our shelves, the fuel that runs our cars, and the steel that builds our cities. You think I wrote that? It's not bad. Save that. I want to save that paragraph.
No one thinks you wrote that. You read that like a kid reciting a poem in class. Two roads diverged in yellow wood. No one even thinks you wrote this. Also, what did you mean when you said, I want to save that paragraph? When will you ever have any reason to use it again? Happy Valentine's Day, Melania. You carry anything and everything, the food that stocks my shelves. Now, as Trump waxed poetic about truck drivers and promised to put American truckers first, drivers said he hasn't delivered. In fact, the Trump administration has actually made things worse for many truckers by enacting policies that hurt them financially. Take Trump's tax law, which he tried to sell as a huge tax break specifically for truck drivers. And when he touted the plan in front of hundreds of truckers and industry executives, it was the classic Trump 1-2 punch. Transparent pandering followed by incoherent thoughts.
I want to tell you, to the truckers in this room, which is a lot of people, you're going to make more money, you're going to do better than ever before, more jobs, higher pay, and lower taxes. This huge tax cut two words, huge, and now rocket. Can you believe it? I haven't been the same. Rocket. You know what we're talking about, folks. Don't worry about it. It will rocket fuel, and it will be rocket fuel for our economy.
Now, that, I believe you wrote. It will be huge. And then rocket fuel, and it will be rocket fuel. So there you have it. Trump said truckers would pay less and make more money than ever thanks to his tax plan. So how did that go?
Do you feel like this administration is listening to you as truckers?
No, ma'am.
No, they're not listening, not at all.
They say some of their issues affect all Americans, like the Republican-led tax bill.
How many of you, by a show of hands, saw your taxes increase this year?
Oh, they all went up, yeah.
1, 2.
Yeah, this year they went up.
1, 2.
Yeah.
All of you? So most of you saw your taxes increase.
The reason? Something called a per diem. In the past, truckers could deduct things like food and daily expenses from their taxable income. Now, with Trump's new tax bill, they no longer can.
I have a young family at home, and with our per diem, they took the per diem out. That made an $8,000 difference.
$8,000?
What I personally paid.
So what were you paying in taxes last year?
Nothing.
Amazing. So while the tax plan lowered rates for trucking industry executives who make millions of dollars a year, it only made things worse for those actually doing the driving. In fact, because of Trump's tax law, accountants have had to tell truck drivers that after years of being able to count on receiving tax refunds, that they in fact would owe thousands of dollars. As one small fleet owner put it, they got screwed. It's so bad, a lot of them can't even afford clothing for the women on their mud flaps. And in this case, a lot of the people getting screwed voted for Trump. And they aren't just worse off because of his tax law. Truckers are also hurting because of Trump's trade wars and tariffs, which again is a direct contradiction to what he had promised.
America first means putting American truckers first. When companies stay in America and move to America, it's our wonderful workers who reap the rewards, including our great truckers who will have more products to deliver and more contracts to fill. That's the way it happens.
Well, it turns out that's not the way it happens. In fact, the exact opposite is what ended up happening.
Industry data shows the rates trucking companies charge are down nearly as much as 17%. The reason, in part, the president's trade war. With fewer goods like steel and electronics coming into U.S. ports, fewer trucks are needed to move them.
These tariffs are having real-life consequences on states that rely on, for instance, trucking. These states, many of them voted for President Trump. Some of America's biggest trucking companies are blaming the U.S.-China trade war, along with new tariffs, for hurting their bottom line.
That's right, because of Trump's trade war, trucks have less to haul. But Trump would probably say, if you think about it, that means they can drive smaller trucks, and then it'll be easier to get down from them. Because they're very high in the air. So Trump's tax law and his trade wars have had a negative impact on truckers. In fact, one of the few policies Trump enacted the trucking industry lobbyists actually pushed for is one that arguably puts everyone else on the road in danger.
The Transportation Department is moving to relax federal regulations on the number of hours that truckers can be behind the wheel.
Highway safety advocates say the contemplated changes would weaken the regulations, leading to driver fatigue, making roads more dangerous.
They say truckers will put in even longer days at a time when they say driver fatigue is a serious problem.
For someone who loves trucks so much, Trump doesn't seem to care much about the condition of the person behind the wheel. Maybe he doesn't even realize there are drivers. I just assume the trucks go all day, and then at night they turn back into giant robots and go to sleep. So thanks to Trump's policies, truckers are forced to work more for less, hay, and potentially harmful conditions. And his ongoing trade wars could put thousands of truck drivers out of work entirely. So the best we can hope for is that truckers return the favor in 2020. This has been The Check-In.